All right, all right. Well, this is going to be a pretty big talk here, and it's one a long time coming, really, because I've done this in tidbits along the way, right through the other previous talks, right through the 7 Hermetic Principles. I've been alluding to this, which you're seeing right now. Probably one of the most contentious things to try to even get into. I mean, because it's contentious for religionists who have been misguided by the right column. It's contentious to atheists who respond to religion only in terms of misguided religion, which is the right column here that's going to be discussed. I'm going to unpack this tangled web. It's just pushing 23, 24 years in the making right now. So I came to this understanding by way of something of direct experience, and around 23, 24 years ago at this point. And I got to tell you, it wasn't very fashionable to understand this over 20 years ago. Not at all. You want to talk about hatred. You want to talk about people spewing at the mouth. You want to talk about calling out and casting out demons. The right column. I've been like a fucking Constantine when it comes to drawing out demons, which are blind ego in human beings. You know, the ego acting in ways that are blind creates shadows. The ego acting in ways that are blind. What this is, and I'm going to go ahead and make another side note here. This, in a nutshell, is the fruits of self, unrealized human. Self, unrealized human is what Antichrist is going to wind up being in the long run. And I'm going to go ahead and just unpack that. Because we're going to talk about, first up front, we're going to have to define what is Christ. And in order to know what is Antichrist, you have to know what Christ is supposed to be. And then what is the opposite of that is bloody obvious, right? Well, that's what I realized, 20 years ago. This is going to be very obvious to those that have eyes to see, to those that have the capability of eyes open, mind awake. This is self-realized human. That's what this stuff really is. So I'm going to put it up there. It is, and then I'm going to work out why we have to set it up in a way that looks like a dichotomy. I have a previous talk on how all dichotomies are false dichotomy. So I'll, do diligence and I'll unpack it all the way through to where what looks like a dichotomy right now won't be in the end. So let's start there. We've got Christ and Antichrist, and I'm saying it can be simplified into self-realized human, contrasted in comparison with self-unrealized human. Christ, Antichrist. I'm going to qualify that. It's not hard to do. This means anointed. The meaning of this is anointed. And who anointed in what way? Anointed who? Well, first of all, we need to make this correction here. The term Christ applies to not one person, but many people throughout the Torah and the New Testament. King David was a Christ. Lots of high priests were Christs. We need to air this out. It's Christ's anointed, and then somebody might, Jesus Christ of the New Testament was the one and only anointed. Those others, sure, the King David and others, yeah, they were anointed, but he's the anointed. He's the, no, you're still wrong. In St. John, in the Gospel John, it is very clear. At John 10:30, Jesus says, I and the Father are one. They pick up stones to stone him for blasphemy, for claiming that he, a man, is God, saying that he is God and God is he. It's supposed to be a blasphemy in the Jewish tradition. Well, they're making a point. The writers are making a point of this to make an argument. They say, no, not the case. And he goes back, he says, isn't it written in your law? He's referring to Psalm 82. Isn't it written in your law, I have said you are gods, Elohim. Well, the Elohim in Psalm 82 are a retelling of the Sumerian Anunnaki. These are plural gods. The reference, whether it's to the Elohim or the older reference that it's retelling, which is Anunnaki, it is a plural reference. This is telling you in the Gospel of John that this Christ thing is supposed to be understood as plurality. It is telling you that. It's citing the Torah to try to make this further and clearer. What makes you not understand it that way is this: Antichrist influences. We're going to figure out what the Christ is, though, first, in order, and unpack that. Well, it's plural, Christ, and you have to start there. Well, how do we know? Well, Alan Watts gave a lecture, I think in the late 60s, early 70s, where he was pointing out something critical. In the Greek, when you're reading these passages, which they were originally written in, it's very clear. And it's saying that, following this reference to the Elohim, Jesus says, if it says that they are gods, meaning the Elohim Anunnaki, and, in the law, and law can't be broken, or scripture can't be broken, then why do you accuse me of blasphemy for saying that I am a son of God? An Elohim. A son of God. Consistent with the plural references to the Elohim in Psalm 82. Consistent, parsimonious, simple, coherent. The writers made a coherent reference. What makes this incoherent is going to be this. And I'll keep going that way. So, given what it is, it's a coherent reference with coherent citation and making it very clear in the original language what it means. This has been interpolated when they copied and this went into other languages outside of the Greek, when it goes to Latin and other languages like English. They had to put it into Hebrew. It was written in Greek for audiences that read that way. The meaning was meant for that. We have to backtrack to then even apply the Hebrew. These are points that really need to be understood. The interpolation is given in italics, and Alan Watts pointed this out, that it says the in like an italicized way. Why do you accuse me of blasphemy for saying I am the Son of God? Well, the citation wasn't to a singular reference. It wasn't. The citation was to a plural reference, the Elohim or Anunnaki. And then he comes in and says, I'm not blaspheming. It says that we are all sons of God, and I am saying that I am which is not a blasphemy as he's claiming. The way it's written in its actual context, in the actual scriptures, in the original language, is very clear. That's the point. This is where we need to start this investigation. We got to get the facts straight. This is how this works, is to muddy the waters, twist and manipulate the facts. That's how this works. to get your mind off of what the original reference was meant to be and onto some other thing, which is a red herring, which is an irrelevant aside. So this is what this is. And it's ultimately not a a false dichotomy. I'm just going to keep unpacking this. So we can understand then that there's a couple of things going on here, according to perspective. In perspective, we can see a couple of different things. And one is this original idea of Christ's, plural, meaning something like what the Buddhas mean. The Buddha is one who is awakened to reality. Reality is mind and all that entails. This is not different. This has come in behind an already existing Buddhism. Buddhism took the ethnic religion of Hinduism and turned it into a proselytizing world religion with missionaries and missionary work. And guess what? They went out all over the place. Buddhist missionaries were in the Middle East when this came out. I'm just going to put that out there. So there's a trend, a detectable trend, which was take these older ethnic religions and transform them into a world religion. Well, guess what? The same thing happened here. This came out, and it was just like the Buddha. And it's about Judaism, which was an ethnic religion, but this changes this ethnic religion into a world religion where you can go out with missionary work and proselytize. That's what happened. This literally did the very same religious formula that Buddhism had done hundreds of years to thousands of years earlier, however old, the difference. People are all torn on the timelines. I'm not even going to try to set a fixed timeline. Thousands, hundreds to thousands of years earlier. It was much earlier, whatever the case. So we can detect a trend there between what was originally meant to be Christ and plural. Others were supposed to, and it tells you this also in John. As you go further from that, why do you accuse me of blasphemy for saying I am a son of God? In context with Psalm 82, everything in context, it goes further and it begins to talk about how the disciples are one with Jesus, the church and the disciples are one. Jesus, the church, the disciples are one. They're taking things that are separate and they're consolidating them into one, which is holism. Holism, the one is the many, and the many are the one. I've coined that, as a modern type of Hermetic axiom from Hermetic idealism to consolidate a lot of old world knowledge all into one package. The many, the one is the many. I and the Father are one. And the many, therefore the many are the one. This is all being taught in the Gospel of John. If people just if they played attention to what was there, what was actually written in original language, this is evident. This can be understood as clear. And it's holism. What it's conveying is a message of holism. And isn't that obvious? That spirit would be holistic? Spirit is this. And the Holy Spirit is, I'm misspelling it. Hang on. I want to, if I spell it right way, it's actually easier to understand. Holistic. Spirit is what's holy about the Holy Spirit. This is what is holy. It's holism. Through this mystical religious teaching that was put together by Neoplatonic and Gnostic Hermetic astronomer priests inscribed during the Bronze Age and leading down into the bottom of the Iron Age, according to the precession cycle, the Greek cycles of time. Holism is the Holy Spirit, is the Christ. This is far from what is being taught in mainstream Christianity. This is far from what has been taught for the last 2,000 years within what is considered orthodox, mainstream, popular Christian religion. That's all going to change. It's been changing, and it's changing further right now by default of me even writing this and putting this out there and making sure that the eyes that are meant to see it can see it because it's out there. Doesn't matter that there's not a lot of views. Doesn't matter. What matters is that the possibility for views is there. That's what matters. So I'm going to continue on with this discourse. Where am I at? 15 minutes? I don't want them to go too long. But I also have to say everything that needs to be said. I'm going to go over these and then go over these. Because I want to get down to what it is, what we can identify that it actually is, and then we could talk about what's the opposite of what it actually is. And there's some tough pills to swallow for certain people here on the right call. Inner, within, the kingdom of the Father is within you, it says in Luke. It gets more graphic in the Thomas Gospel. Inner, personal salvation is the Christic message, is the holistic message, is the message of the Holy Spirit, which is holism, which is unity, the opposite of which is anti-unity. You see what's going on here? Anti-holism. Inner, personal salvation. What is the anti of this? I did better for me to just continue on. Let me not get too distracted here. Personal spirituality is what this is all taking us to. Individuals who are personally spiritual. If you're a Christian because you're personally Christian inside. Not affiliation with some external institution of men. That is the real message. The Antichrist isn't something that hasn't come yet. I'm going to get into this. I think it should be obvious to people. You see it coming like a train wreck. We're not waiting for it to arrive. It's been here. So the opposite of this is what has become the mainstream depiction of Jesus. The mainstream is the anti of what the actual Jesus actually was, but actually still is, because what it was, it is always. It doesn't change. What changes is this falsity, this false caricature of what was meant by Christ, which is Christ's people awakening. People become Buddhas because they awaken. You're supposed to become Christ's the same way, by awakening to holism, to interpersonal salvation, which brings personal spirituality outside of the reaches of organized religions. I'm going to continue. Everything that is mainstream, and this may take faith on the part of some people. If they're going to have to take me at my word on this, I guess. I'm going to demonstrate and prove. This is the proof. This is the demonstration. If that's not good enough for you, then I don't know what. This is leading the horse to water. I can't make the horse drink. I can just lead it to the riverside. This is the river right now. I'm leading the horses to the river. It is up to the horses to drink. I won't even pretend that I can make the horse drink. I can't. No one can. Mainstream thoughts and ideas, everything that is the most popular. If this world is illusory, if this world is Maya, if this world is samsara, if this world is Babylon the Great, how about Babylon TG? If the world is this which is illusion, not as it appears at face value. Everything that's popular, everything that's considered mainstream, everything is going to be skewed. All of it is going to be skewed in the illusion. This was trying to address this. All of this. This salvation thing, this personal salvation thing, is salvation from all of this, which is Antichrist. The Antichrist can be found throughout the right column. It's not in one particular place. It's not in one particular person. It's the idea that it's the very concept of putting all of your attention on a single individual and not the collective whole. That's what it is. This is blind ego. This is known as blind ego, which includes spiritual ego. Spiritual ego is a form of blind ego. This is what we would call integrated ego, collective. Integrated ego. I'll unpack that further, but this is what's going on here between the left column and the right column for contrast and comparison. Holism, the anti of which is dualism. The idea that physical objects in space are really and truly and fundamentally separate. This is the idea that there's separate things that exist, one being spirit, one being matter. This is spirit, matter, no separation. I think that's a Zen saying. That's the way Christianity ought to be understood as well, correctly, in its original form. The dualism that we find, where people are reading the scriptures, the language is dualistic because language is dualistic itself. We have to be able to look past that. That's why the scriptures are pointing to holistic realities and holistic inner salvation through symbols, because the symbols are not meant to be taken literally. The symbols are meant to symbolize something, point past all of this illusion, which is language, which is human language, human concepts. Guess what? Scriptures are written with words and numbers in language. Even the scriptures can be made an idol. To get past, this is the land of idolatry. This is what you can make an idol out of the Bible. You can make an idol out of Jesus Christ. That's what they've done. That's what the Antichrist is. They've made an idol out of this. They've made a mockery out of God in what is considered just about the whole of the mainstream. In different ways. They made a mockery out of God through religious dualism, which has externalized the concept of salvation. Interpersonal salvation, the original intent of the original writers in the original language, gets thrown into this anti of what was originally intended, which is externalized salvation, looking to others to save you. You not having the ability to look within. It says in Luke, the kingdom of the Father is within you. Thomas doubles down much deeper than that. Kingdom of the Father is within you, and yet they've got everybody looking outwardly for their salvation, not inward. This inward salvation is not being taught in the churches. The churches are false churches. That's what this boils down to. You're looking out. There aren't separate things. There's a holistic reality. The separate things are Babylon, samsara, Maya, illusion. When you think that things are truly fundamentally separate, you're being deluded. This is self-delusion. This is self-unrealized human. Antichrist is in your head at that point. You're out here looking for an Antichrist out here that's going to come along, like some president or some pope. People have theories on presidents, popes, world leaders, this, that, and the other thing. It isn't one person. This isn't one person, and neither is this. I've known that for the last, I don't know, like I said, 23, 24 years. And it's been almost impossible to talk about with people. I had some sort of a download experience where this all came to me sudden, come out of a direct experience and understand this in a not so much an intellectual way, in a way that's deeper than that, in a way that's in your right hemisphere, in your intuitive mind. But what this is about is the union of right and left hemisphere. So it's taken decades to unpack it intellectually. I understood it intuitively right up front, and it seemed very difficult to impossible to unpack all of this intellectually 23 years ago, put it that way. But over the course of time, going over things, I've been able to figure out how to balance in the left hemisphere perspective of this, where it is coherent, where it is logical, where it is rational. That has come, but with time. This was there from the very beginning. Intuitively, I knew this to be true. Right off, straight away. And I started trying to talk to pastors that I thought would listen to me about it, which was a big mistake, because guess where that went? Yeah, I'm sure you can imagine. I retracted a little bit and then just sort of got my game put together to understand how to talk to people about something this effing sensitive. I don't know if I'm there yet. I may not be, because this is still going to be too sensitive for a lot of people. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm not self-deluded in that way. But I'm going to attempt to put it out there for those that can get it. And to make sure that I don't have people getting polarized about it and trying to start fights about it. This isn't, in the end, this is going to stop the fights. It's not going to make them continue. It's not going to further the fighting. It's going to stop it. Externalized salvation. There's going to be a lot of ass-hurt people around because they think this is true. They think that this is Jesus. They think that the Antichrist is the Christ. And that's a problem. It's a problem. It keeps the world in Maya, Samsara, and Babylon the Great in a circle. It keeps it going around and around and around and around. But it's scheduled to fall. It's prophesied to end. And those prophecies are symbolic. They're allegories. They're metaphors. But they point to something. That doesn't mean that they're meaningless. They have a meaning and they point to something, which is the end of all of this right here. Which is that as you crawl out of the dark ages in the history of the world, according to cyclical time or sine wave peaks and troughs of advancement and then a loss of advancement, this happens. Down at the troughs of cyclical time as a sine wave, you have the dark ages. Those are the times when the Antichrist rules, and it rules through people. It rules through individuals. It doesn't rule as a single entity. It's in the minds of the people who are self-deluded and self-unrealized in this manner, right here. That's how it operates. And it's going to be alive as long as this is alive. Institutional religions and dogma are what keep this alive. This is where I said it might require faith at some point on the part of some people who are self-unrealized and self-deluded into thinking that Christ is the anti of what Christ is actually meant to convey. Not a light issue. Not a light issue, and I don't take it lightly. But I need to say the truth. The truth has to be spoken. And the truth is that institutional religions, as much as you may love them, as much as you think that that is what's true and good in the world, that this is the only thing good in this world is this. Well, that's what the illusion sets up. That's what it wants personal minds to think. That's how it keeps them locked into this diluted, externalized perception. That's the fuel that allows the life of what is essentially antichrist mentality. Through individual people, through individuals. That's why the fallen is Babylon the Great, mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. It's this. It is the thing that comes at you as light. It's false light. False light doesn't come to you as darkness. Satan doesn't come as Satan, in other words. Satan comes to you as a being of light, as an angel, as goodness. This is the way this presents itself. What a dilemma. Who's right? This is some kind of a standoff where you've got one side, which is the mainstream, the most popular, that has appeal. All the logical fallacies are on this side. Appeal to authority, appeal to popularity, appeal to credential. That's all over here. It's logically fallacious. It doesn't balance. It's not coherent. It's incoherent. It doesn't balance in the logical hemisphere with the intuitive hemisphere into a coherent balance. It doesn't do that. This is incoherent. This is out of balance. Everything that science is discovering today points to this. Non-local reality points to holism. Local realism has been found out to be false. Science already knows this. We've already got to that point. Science has already risen up out of the last dark age. We're probably right about here, heading towards a higher age up here. The dark ages were around 500 BCE. They're behind us, and we're on our way this way as a world, as the earth, as a collective, as people. This is the part in the history of the world where we begin to wake up, and that's what it means. Buddha means the one who is awakened, like I've said. Christs are those who are awakened through this Western presentation of the very same discourse. That's what is going to be re-remembered, re-realized, re-understood now as we're going into the higher ages of the world. It's a transitional time. And it's, to conclude this, it's not going to be this. This is in you. So if we make it into a big hard-edged battle, it's not you versus somebody else. It's you versus the shadows that exist within your own mind. You better be careful on yourself. What are you going to do? Think about it. What you need to do is you need to integrate. It's the integration of ego. It's having value as an individual within a functional collective. That's what this is. The balance comes from no loss of the individual for sake of the greater collective. Imbalance is focusing everything on the collective at the loss of the individual, or having the loss of the collective for the individual. And that's where polarized minds or antichrists want to take things. And they want to take it there, whether it's in secular science, in philosophy, whether it's in popular mainstream organized religions that come with all of the logical fallacies like appeal to authority, credential, popularity. These are imbalanced mind. An imbalanced mind is the antichrist. It's going to take you back to the human being as self-unrealized, which means having imbalance inside of the individual, and then a collective of unbalanced individuals on the inside, subjectively unbalanced. That's it in a nutshell. I'm not going to take it further than that for the talk. I'll leave it there. If anybody feels like they have something further that they've found, or if they have some sort of a eureka that they'd like to talk about, I'm always there. Post in the comments. We'll talk about it. I'll debate lightly with people. I won't let them get too ugly. If it gets too ugly, we'll have to just stop the debating. I will debate as long as it's civil. Like I said, the point here is that this is in me. This is in you. This is in all of us. This is the shadow of this. And it's on the inside. The only way that the illusion is going to fall, and the way that it's described through allegory in the book of Revelation, is through individuals awakening to what's been described just now. That is the way, the truth, and the life. That is, no one goes to the Father but through me. No one goes to the Father but through becoming this plural reference of Christ's. You all have to become that. Everybody has to become that. We got to stop looking at it as a singular reference. It has to be understood as a collective reference, and so does this. So does this. I know that's going to sting, but the truth is this, and I have to say the truth.